Stop the clock. Fix your mind on this moment. It is May 1945. The place is Luzon, in the Philippines. The war is supposedly winding down, but for one American position, the gates of hell are about to blow open. The air is thick with humidity and the smell of death. The men of the U.S. Army's 3rd Infantry Division are exhausted, dug in, and ready for anything. Except this. Because tonight, the enemy is not coming with a coordinated assault. The enemy is coming to commit collective suicide, and they intend to take as many Americans with them as they can. The sound starts as a distant, howling wave, a frantic, terrifying, inhuman scream that builds into a deafening roar. This is the Banzai charge. And standing in the path of this overwhelming, fanatic human wave is not a company of men, not a fortified position. It is one single, unassuming American soldier named Sergeant John R. McKinney. The numbers are impossible. The odds are beyond comprehension. 100 Japanese soldiers rushing, screaming, committed to death, versus one American rifleman alone in a muddy hole. The Japanese High Command believed this was the unstoppable answer to American firepower. A human tsunami designed to simply wash over the defenses. They were confident. They were committed. But they had forgotten one essential truth. The American soldier is never defeated until he decides he is defeated. And Sergeant McKinney had made a savage decision. Not today. The setting of the impossible stand. To understand this feat, you must understand the desperation. Luzon was the last major battleground of the Pacific. The Japanese garrison knew they had lost, but they were bound by the rigid fanatic code of Bushido. They were expected to die, and die spectacularly. They launched their ultimate final weapon. The massive, all-in, overwhelming night charge. Their goal: overrun a key American position, smash the logistics line, and buy their doomed commanders one more day. Sergeant John McKinney was the man holding the weakest link. He was isolated in a forward foxhole, alone, serving as a lookout. His equipment was standard: an M1 Garand rifle, a handful of clips, and a few grenades. Nothing more. He had no heavy support, no fallback. His only hope was his own skill, his own raw courage, and the devastating efficiency of the American rifle. The wave began to break against the American line. And then, the main thrust, the largest, most savage group, headed straight for McKinney's isolated position. They saw a single hole, a single shadow, and they saw a moment of easy, guaranteed victory. They laughed. They screamed. They thought it was over before it began. The Japanese officers were shocked to see a single man in that hole. They thought, "This is too easy. This is a gift." But that gift was about to detonate in their faces. The first wave hit the perimeter with a terrifying, unified roar. McKinney didn't hesitate. He knew that if they reached the hole, his battle was over. This had to be a defensive massacre. The M1 Garand, the finest standard-issue rifle of the war, came alive in his hands. 8 rounds. Ping! 8 screaming Japanese soldiers fell dead in the space of 2 seconds. McKinney slammed a new clip home with practiced, mechanical efficiency. There was no time to aim, only to point and fire. The sheer volume of fire coming from that single hole was unbelievable. The Japanese commanders were baffled. They assumed there had to be an entire squad, perhaps a machine gun nest, concentrated in that one spot. No single man could fire with such devastating, sustained accuracy. McKinney was a blur of motion. Fire. Reload. Fire. Reload. The ground in front of his position became instantly littered with the dead and dying. The bodies piled up, forming a savage, temporary wall of flesh and gear. But the Banzai charge is not deterred by casualties. They simply stepped over their fallen comrades. The screaming and the momentum continued. They were close enough now that McKinney could see the hatred in their eyes, the glint on their bayonets. He had burned through all of his rifle clips. The M1 Garand was spent. The Japanese were now on top of his position, reaching down into his hole. The battle transitioned instantly from a brutal shooting gallery to a close quarters, desperate, savage brawl. McKinney knew this was the moment of truth. He had one grenade left. He armed it and lobbed it perfectly into the tightest cluster of enemy soldiers, right on the lip of his foxhole. The explosion was deafening, tearing apart the men closest to him and briefly clearing the immediate area. But they kept coming. The sheer weight of their numbers was the weapon. This is the point where the Japanese realized the chilling, unbelievable truth. This was only one man, and they were horrified. Their entire strategy was now being defeated by the raw, stubborn refusal of one American to die. McKinney's rifle was useless, but his training was not. He snapped the rifle bayonet clean off the barrel. He was now armed with nothing more than a sharpened piece of steel and his own fury. They leaped into the hole. What followed was not a fight. It was a desperate, primal killing spree. McKinney plunged the improvised bayonet, stabbing, slashing, and fighting for every single inch of his life. He used his empty rifle as a club, smashing the faces and heads of the men who entered his hole. One Japanese soldier lunged at him, and McKinney tackled him, plunging the knife repeatedly until the threat was gone. He fought from his knees. He fought from his back. The hole became a slick, gruesome pit of mud, blood, and spent brass. Every moment was a decision to survive, and every decision ended another life. The momentum of the Japanese charge began to stutter. They were not deterred by a machine gun nest. They were broken by a solitary man who simply would not yield. Their fanatical courage was meeting a cold, mechanical fury they had never encountered. They could not believe one man was doing this to them. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the Japanese charge collapsed. Not because of a flanking maneuver or heavy artillery, but because the men at the front had been absolutely, devastatingly massacred by one man. The survivors broke their charge and fled back into the jungle, leaving a silent, unbelievable tableau of destruction behind. The sun rose on a scene of carnage that defied logic. When the American relief force cautiously approached McKinney's position, they found him staggering out of his foxhole, soaked in blood and exhausted, but alive. The ground around the hole was absolutely blanketed with the dead. The final count was a figure that has been etched into the legends of the U.S. Army forever. Sergeant John R. McKinney had personally accounted for approximately 80 dead Japanese soldiers. 80 men, one rifle, one grenade, one bayonet, one foxhole. This was not a war of machines. This was a war of will, and that single American's will was stronger than the fanaticism of 100 men. The Japanese High Command received the fragmented reports of the massacre. They were not just defeated, they were humiliated. Their ultimate weapon, the Banzai charge, had been dismantled by a single resourceful American infantryman. For his unbelievable, unstoppable performance, a single man proving the absolute savage superiority of the American fighting spirit, Sergeant John R. McKinney received the Medal of Honor. This story is not just a tale of heroism. It is a testament to the raw, resourceful, inventive nature of the U.S. soldier. When faced with impossible odds, America doesn't retreat. America doesn't surrender. America innovates a way to win. Sergeant McKinney built a wall with the bodies of his attackers. And that wall stood firm. He proved to the enemy that no matter the numbers, no matter the weapon, the American answer is always final. If the terrifying, unstoppable might of the American soldier inspires you, hit subscribe and join World War II on a roll. What other impossible feat do you want us to feature next? Let us know in the comments below.